Sabi ni Egay, binitawan kita dahil bumabagsak ako sa ratings dahil sa'yo. Sabi ni Tiliane sa kanya, iniwan mo ako dahil sa pera. Binili ka. Ganun yung bakbakan. Sabi pa ni
Sige,
Tiliane,
sa akin
gusto mo,
muna.
tablahin kita. Sabi ko kay Egay, tumahimik ka na. Tumahimik ka na. Politiko ka. Ito isa, hindi naman politiko.
Alright, let's get the ball rolling, guys. Medyo behind schedule tayo. I'm sure everyone is here for breaking news and developments. Pero ang dahilan naging forum ito is because we first want to discuss yung mga big picture issues, no? So magka-discussion muna tayo with our great guests here this morning. Explain ko lang ng konti bakit may ganito tayong forum at anong gusto natin mangyari, ano yung general purpose natin. And then later on, bubuksan ko yung discussion for around 30-40 minutes dun sa mga tanong nyo. So relax lang kayo dyan. Alam ko marami excited dyan magtanong. So habang naghihintay tayo ng mga clearance and final statements dyan sa mga kaibigan natin from the other side, let's have some general discussion. Una-una, magandang umaga. Ako po si Richard Hidarian. Some of you, just some administrative note. Please put your phones and everything on silent mode because this is gonna go live. So some of the people who couldn't join us, they can follow us via my Facebook and different platforms. Yes?
I'm not the chair of it.
Yeah, exactly. Amy, hindi ito yung updated. Amy, yung latest version. Yeah, exactly. Pati itsura ako hindi na ganyan. Pati yung title. Yeah. Pinalitan ko yan. Yeah.
Magagalit si boss sa akin, chair National Task Force, was really did say, magagalit si boss.
Yeah, sure. Paayusin na natin. Okay. Anyway, mahalaga yung nandito. Okay guys, so una-una, bakit meron tayong ganitong forum? Una-una, of course, inspired tayo doon sa mga ibang kapihan. As some of you may know, before I joined media and the academe, doon tayo sa aristocrat. We used to have a lot of discussion about West Philippines noon pa lang. Of course, inspired din tayo doon sa ginagawa ng kaibigan natin, sila Marichu dito. So that's why sabi namin, gawin din namin ito. Bakit UTAK? Hindi kami nagpaparinig sa ibang kapihan. Hindi namin sinasabi na kami lang may UTAK. Hindi ito loaded. Ito yung usapan Taft at Katipunan. At kung makikita niyo dito, meron tayong mga UST, Ateneo, UP. So different. Ako ex-Lasal, ngayon UP. At kung if you have been informed, ito po yung, hopefully, ito yung pilot episode. So let's all behave. Let's make sure this will work para tuloy-tuloy ito. At ang idea po natin dito is we want to have a discussion among public thinkers, and at the same time, we want to have an interface sa pagitan ng gobyerno at saka independent public thinkers galing sa iba't ibang larangan, sektor. At of course, sa mga susunod na episodes, gusto natin na magkaroon ng more diversity, of course. People from civil society, people from church, fisher folks, youth sector, women leaders, mga yon. So this is just the beginning. Okay, so huwag kayong magalit. We're just getting the ball rolling. So I hope you'll appreciate for the first hour, so ang gagawin natin dito is big picture, yung pag-usapan natin. So some of you may have been familiar with my podcast, with my platforms, kung saan halos na-interview ko lahat. Actually, na-interview ko silang lahat. So what we want to do here is essentially a podcast na parang press con, na parang kapihan. So it's a hybrid format that allows for people to have this direct interaction. So kaya naisip namin itong forum na ito, and we hope to have this more regularly over the coming months dahil maraming development. So once again, hold your horses. Kung may tanong kayo, especially sa mga breaking news ngayon sa West Philippine Sea, we're gonna get to that later on. But the first thing we want to do here is to look at the big picture. Kaya ito na yung mga luminaries po ang kasama natin from different frameworks and different perspectives. Alright, so let's get the ball rolling. Isa-isa tayo sa mga speakers. Maybe, Jay, you wanna go first or you're still clearing? Yeah. Sige, I'll start with Justice CARPIO. So siguro, a 2 to 3 minute opener from each of the speakers in terms of ano yung pag-intindi nila in terms of what is the Philippines' first foreign policy? Because parati natin narinig, pro-China ba ito? Pro-America ba ito? But obviously, for us to have an informed and proper discussion about yung interest natin sa West Philippine Sea, dapat unang-una maintindihan natin ano ba talaga interest ng ating bayan? What is the Philippines' first foreign policy? in an era of great power competition. So to get the ball rolling, Justice Carpio, may I start with you, Justice? What is your understanding of ano ba talagang Philippine national interest sa West Philippine Sea, and how do we make sure na ito ay talaga interest natin at hindi tayo nag-align with the other powers at the expense of our own national interest? Yeah.
Well, our national interest in the West Philippine Sea is, of course, to protect our island territories and our maritime zones. So there are two disputes in the South China Sea. You have the territorial dispute over island territories. You have the maritime dispute over exclusive economic zone and extended continental shelf. How did we resolve the maritime dispute? We followed the rule of law. When China seized Scarborough Shoal in 2012, we did not send our Marines to retake Scarborough Shoal because, of course, Chinese vessels overwhelmed us. We were outnumbered in Scarborough Shoal. We sent our lawyers to The Hague to invalidate the 9-dash line of the 10-dash line. So our approach would be to protect our maritime zones and island territories under our constitution and international law. And the method is to follow the rule of law, to use UNCLOS to defend our maritime zones, and to use the general international law to defend our island territories. Now, we are seeing China stopping us from or harassing our resupply to Sierra Madre. Recently, you have the problem with Scottish shoals. So we should always use the rule of law, because if we use the rule of law, the world will support us. The arbitral award is there. You have the naval powers of the world supporting us, and China is isolated now. They are sailing in the West Philippine Sea to assert the arbitral award. So we should continue to follow the rule of law, because it's common sense. We cannot fight China, which is the largest naval fleet in the world, the largest Coast Guard fleet in the world, the largest submarine fleet in the world, the largest standing army in the world, the second largest economy. So we should use law, which is our strength. And in this case, I've always said we should file another arbitration case, especially in the extended continental shelf. We filed our claim, China opposed it. Under the rules of the UN Convention of the Limits of the Continental Shelf, that claim of ours is frozen, because the moment there's an opposition from another state, they will not decide. They will wait for you to decide it with the other state, either by negotiation or by arbitration. Of course, China will just say, that's ours under the 10-dash line. So we have to go to arbitration against China on the extended continental shelf, and on other issues, like, for example, the recent development in Skoda, where they have intentionally bumped or collided with our Coast Guard vessel. That is a civilian agency, and that's covered by Congress. Thank you.
So Justice, essentially ang sinasabi niyo dito, as yung national interest natin ay aligned dun sa international law, right? Essentially yun yung sinasabi natin. So by asserting international law, we're also asserting what is rightfully ours.
That's correct. And we cannot lose, because the law is on our side. China can never win if we go to an UNCLOS tribunal, because the 9-dash line is against international law.
Right. ADG Malaya, Yusek Malaya, obviously, parati natin narinig, may mga ibang kapihan, may mga ibang quarters who say, itong Marcos administration, naging pro-US na, proxy war na. What is your take on that? What is your understanding of the Marcos administration's policy? In what sense does it forward the Philippines' national interests rather than serving the interests of any superpower against another?
First and foremost, Richard, to thank you for inviting us here to your inaugural pilot episode of your UTAK forum. Baka naman natin si Richard.
Kulang sa breakfast ba yan?
Yeah, well, I agree completely with what Justice Carpio said. But beyond the territorial and the maritime dispute which is ongoing right now, there's also this ongoing battle of narratives.
Right.
So I think this is really based on the three warfares concept of China, of the People's Republic of China, wherein one of the important elements of battle when they do warfare is the lawfare, no? Or the legal warfare which they're doing right now. But for example, they're trying to subjugate the UNCLOS, and they're making their own legal dictums, they're making their own legal theories, no? They're issuing their regulations, for example, CCG Regulation Number 3, which seeks to, which empowers their Chinese Coast Guard, no? To be able to make arrests and detain alleged trespassers within their territory without trial for 30 to 60 days. This is really part of lawfare, no? Trying to make their own version of legal theories, no? Their own narratives in that regard. But most importantly, the other warfare that they're trying to do right now is yung the battle of the narratives, or the psychological warfare. And this is the battle for public opinion, the battle for the hearts and minds of people. And like kung sinasabi sa ating mga kasamahan, to the media and even to the general public, whenever you hear statements coming from the Beijing, from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, you know, don't take it as gospel truth immediately. You know? It has to be taken with a grain of salt, because we have seen how China operates. We have seen how they have used state and non-state entities to further their narratives. You know? Because they understand that it is also a battle of understanding, and it's also a battle for people's hearts and minds. So makikita natin yan in almost anything that happens in the West Philippine Sea. They always have their version of the truth, which doesn't coincide with the facts, and therefore it is critical for people to fact check them. It is critical for entities like this, the UTAK Forum. It is critical for the media to fact check them, because if no one is going to stand up for these false narratives, who will do so?
So you're saying yung accusation na pro-US or proxy war yung ginagawa ng Pilipinas, binuksan natin EDCA, you're saying that's a form of psychological warfare and disinformation.
Exactly, no? Because unang-una, what we're doing in the West Philippine Sea, what we're doing in asserting our rights in the West Philippine Sea is not provocative. What we're doing in strengthening our alliances with the United States by opening up additional EDCA sites to them, strengthening the alliance, strengthening the Mutual Defense Treaty and the other treaties related to that, our multilateral cooperation activities in the maritime zone and in other countries. These are not anti-China activities. These are essentially pro-Philippines activities, because this increases and increases the Philippine position and strengthens the Philippine position. So, yung ginagawa nila na sinasabing we are a proxy to the United States does not coincide with what is the truth. No? It just so happens that the national interest and the interest of the United States coincide because of our shared values, but it doesn't mean that we are a puppet of the US.
Right. You want to go next? Yeah. So thanks for clarifying, at least from your understanding, what we're doing is defensive, and it's also to enhance the Philippines' strategic agency rather than aligning with any superpower. Admiral Ong, from a former top naval official perspective, and also a professor of practice at Ateneo right now, what is your understanding of Philippines first, a Philippine national interest focused approach to the West Philippine Sea, and what is your assessment of our current approach in the West Philippine Sea accordingly?
Thank you, Richard, for the question. Before I answer your question, contextualize ko muna.
Please.
Number one, ang katanggalin natin, hindi yung buong China. Ang katanggalin natin, yung Chinese Communist Party.
Right.
Partido Komunista ng China. So parang hindi pwede yun. Pangalawa, dalawang larangan tayo nakipagtunggali sa kanila. Sa dagat, at sa lupa. Sa dagat, sa West Philippine Sea. Sa West Philippine Sea, pamilyar naman tayo nangyari doon. Ang nakikita ko lang, medyo kailangan natin taasan yung lente ng pagtingin. Yung West Philippine Sea, isang theater of operations yan. It goes, actually extend up to East China Sea, it goes to Singapore. So minsan, nakita natin, napatahimik natin, nag-de-escalate tayo sa Ayungin Show. But active na yung Sabina, tapos sa last week, yung Scarborough Show naman. Kasi sa China, isang theater of operations lang yan. Okay? Pag kumalma sila sa isang lugar, it doesn't mean kalmado yung buong lugar. Okay? Hahanap sila ng ibang butas. Okay? Sa lupa naman, ito yung tinatawag na United Front Work activities, which partly explained by Yusek Jonathan. Okay? Maraming aspeto yun. Okay? Pumapasok sila sa local government units natin, pumapasok sila sa ating politika, pumapasok sa media. I'm sure some of you have been invited to Beijing or Shanghai, siguro, for a tour. Okay? So, the object of United Front Work is to co-opt political elites natin, economic elites, tsaka yung thinking elites, academia. Okay? Para yung naratibo ng China, yung kanilang magwagi dito sa atin. Now, ang interest natin, and go back to the discussion natin before about we have to accept, the Philippines need to accept na middle power tayo. Kasi right now we are a reluctant middle power and because of that reluctance, parang nangingimi tayong gamitin yung full spectrum of the tools of statecraft available to us.
Admiral, could you clarify, ano po yung middle power? Of course, pinapasikat natin ilang taon, pero ngayon medyo nag-mainstream ito. So, hindi tayo pitsugin. Hindi lang tayo small power.
Hindi tayo small power. Middle power tayo by the nature of population, yung capacity natin.
Economic size.
Yung economics natin, of course, nandyan. But, kasi when you talk of yung level of yung quote-unquote power, no, it's not yung actual, it's yung potential also. Okay? Ang tinitingnan ko. Now, because we are reluctant in assuming that rule as a middle power, yung tinatawag nating agency in terms of foreign policy, medyo inaano rin natin, parang pinipigilan din natin yung sarili natin. Okay? To all intents and purpose, we are a convening power. Kasi napapapunta natin yung mga great major powers dito eh. Okay? Now, kailangan lang natin mag-level up na pagtingin sa ating sarili. Okay? You have to be confident as a state and as a nation na middle power tayo, we have agency. Unless we accept that and we take the mantle, kumbaga yung take the mantle or yung you accept that yung tinapon na gauntlet sa atin, we accept that responsibility. Laging bitin yung approach natin. Bitin yung approach natin. Lastly, yung China may estratehiya yan. Kahit anong gawin natin sa West Philippines ngayon, sa nakikita ko, hindi naman nagibag yung strategiya niya eh. Nag-a-adjust lang siya, nagka-calibrate eh. Kumbaga kung medyo mainit, medyo magkaan siya, pero tuloy-tuloy lang. Hindi mo pwedeng tapatan ng strategiya ng taktika. Kailangan nabana mo rin ng strategiya. And I think kung tayo, medyo kailangan pa tayo ayusin yung ating pananaw.
Just a short follow-up, Admiral. Anong pag-intindi niyo dun sa modernization ng Armed Forces of the Philippines, particularly yung naval capacity natin? Gaano kamahalaga ito para maisulong natin ang ating national interest dyan sa West Philippine Sea?
Modernization has several components. Ang kinakailangan natin yung sustainability. Okay. Now, hindi tayo pwede mag-modernize full blast kung at the end of the day, ang inisip natin, bibili tayo ng assets sa labas. So, ang ibig ko sabihin, unless we industrialize, we reinborder yung ating reindustrial capacity to sustain our own capabilities, aasa tayo sa ibang bansa. So, that's number one. Pangalawa, we need to think cheap. We need to think cheap. Ibig sabihin, pag yung binato sa iyo ay, let's say, 100 pesos yung halaga ng binato sa iyo, kailangan mag-isip ka lang ibabato sa kanya na 10 piso lang. Okay? Hindi pwede tapatan mo kasi hindi naman tayo ganun kayaman eh. So, kung papasok mo yun sa modernization, we need to look at technologies that are game changers. Hindi natin huwag natin tapatan yung masyadong mahal na dati. We need to think out of the box.
Thank you very much, Admiral Long. I'm sure lahat naglo-look forward to intervention by our next speaker, Secretary LIAMAS. But before that, may breaking news tayo, and I'm sure that's why a lot of you are also here in addition for listening to our great guest. ADG Malaya, you want to go ahead with your breaking news on the West Philippine Sea?
Yes. Thank you, Richard. May I please read the statement of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea today? This morning, Philippine Coast Guard vessels BRP Bagakay, MRRV 4410, and BRP Cape Enhanyo, MRRV 4411, encountered unlawful and aggressive maneuvers from Chinese Coast Guard vessels while en route to Patak and Lawak Islands in the West Philippine Sea. These dangerous maneuvers resulted in collision, causing structural damage to both Coast Guard vessels of the Philippines, Philippine Coast Guard vessels. At approximately 3:24 in the morning, while navigating about 23.0 nautical miles southeast of Escoda Shoal or Sabina Shoal, BRP Cape Enhanyo was subjected to aggressive maneuvers by CCG V-3104. This resulted in a collision with the starboard beam of the vessel, creating a hole on the deck with an approximate diameter of 5 inches. Shortly after, at 3:40 a.m., BRP Bagakay, approximately 21.3 nautical miles southeast of Escoda Shoal, was rammed twice, and both her port and starboard sides by CCGB 21551, leading to minor structural damage. Despite these incidents, both Philippine Coast Guard vessels remain committed to and shall proceed with their mission of delivering essential supplies to personnel stationed on Patag and Lawak Islands. The Philippine Coast Guard stands firm in its responsibility to ensure the safety and security of our maritime domain while addressing any and all threats to our national interest. The National Task Force West Philippine Sea urges restraint and adherence to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and other environmental laws and international laws to prevent further escalations and ensure the safety of all vessels operating in the region. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you, ADG Malaya. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Can we just park that for a while we're going through this discussion? Kasi big picture gusto natin titignan, and then we'll open up the discussion later on. You wanna add something, Commodore Tarriela?
For the
From the Philippine Coast Guard perspective?
for your earlier question.
Yes. So
For the,
from the Philippine Coast Guard perspective, Commodore Tarriela, gaano kamahalaga yung transparency initiative na ginawa nyo? Kasi there was a lot of debate about whether it's working now. We have this latest breaking news about yet another incident in the West Philippine Sea. Ano po yung importansya, ano yung kahalagaan ng transparency initiative, and how do you see it moving forward?
well, una sa lahat, no, I've always been mentioning this. For those people who are criticizing the transparency initiative of the Philippine government, particularly the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, I always tell those critics, no, we have to go back. What are the objectives of the transparency efforts? The first objective that we have